You also mentioned the U.S. elections. U.S. is one of the biggest democracies in the world. Uh, is it possible?
Well, it's supposed to be.
I grew up in India, and we have seen the level of corruption and how government wants to have access to data, and technology has given them the. But in U.S., it was assumed that we have a set of rules, we have check and balances that will keep a tab. But right now, what we are seeing is that these technologies are being used to, as you said, even change the outcome of elections, which actually poses even more
Well,
serious.
it's to try to.
Try
We
to.
don't know
We don't
that
know
it actually
because
did.
we don't know.
But there are many other dishonest things that are being done to change the outcome. The corruptor did not win the 2016 presidential election. It was stolen by Republicans. They would have stolen no matter who the candidate was, or at least gone a certain distance towards stealing it.
Right.
And it was only because of that that he was able to apparently win the election. And this this theft of the election has been identified in certain states. It was done by blocking, I believe, hundreds of thousands of Americans who should have been allowed to vote from voting. Republicans have various tricks. They're called voter suppression laws. They create excuses to stop lots of people from voting, and those tend to be people who are poor or marginal, in other words, probably will vote Democrat. They know this. And it works pretty well, but it's not democracy.
Right.
Now, a study, which I put a pointer to on Stallman.org somewhere in the political notes in the past couple of years, looked at many different political issues, what public opinion was, and what the decision was, what laws were passed, and found that public opinion had no effect on these decisions since 1998 or so. I don't know whether that was the beginning of their study. There were certainly times, like in the 1970s, when we got laws that the people wanted, even though they were unpleasant for businesses. Clean air, clean water, Endangered Species Act. But nowadays, you can't get that. People understand that the United States doesn't actually practice democracy. It practices an illegitimate form of government called plutocracy. Well, laws chosen by business have no moral authority.
Can you explain plutocracy for our audience? A lot of people who do.
Plutocracy means rule by wealth. And that's what we see.
How many congressmen in our Congress are billionaires and millionaires?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The point is, they're not the ones that rule.
Makes the rule.
The people with the money that pay to get them elected are the ones that rule.
But they also end up making money through them.
Well, they do.
Yes.
And a lot of them are millionaires.
Billionaires, yes.
I don't know if any are billionaires.
Our president is billionaire for sure.
You said Congress.
Congress, right? That's true.
I know that many in Congress, perhaps most, are millionaires.
Right.
But I don't know whether very many are billionaires.
Right, that's true.
After all, they're not the bosses. They're the tools, the flunkies. So I don't expect them to get billions, only millions.
That's true. But what went wrong with our country? What happened?
What happened was, starting in the 1970s, rich people took various measures that were successful over a long term to gain power over the United States government. And they operated various levels, sometimes through obvious corruption. They put a Supreme Court justice on, I believe his name was Powell, who advocated that businesses deserved human rights, which is absurd. A corporation is not a human being and doesn't deserve human rights.
You cannot execute a corporation. You cannot put
you can't legitimately execute a human being either.
But you cannot put them in jail. You cannot. Yeah. Of course,
well, you can.
Put the CEO.
You can erase one. You can, dissolve a corporation and hand out its assets to whatever.
Right.
But our government basically doesn't dare do that because it's too much under the thumb of those very big businesses. But you notice that President Reagan gutted antitrust law.
Right.
And what remained of it was eliminated by W. And since then, mergers have gone on like mad, producing oligopolies with very few competitors. But what is interesting is that it's not just that there are only a few sellers in a certain field, it's that there are only a few buyers for labor in many fields. That's called an oligopsony. And the point is that that's pushing wages down.
Right.
Because there aren't a lot of companies to compete to hire people. And I saw in a study that estimated a 16% effect of this. The details are in a political note recently posted in Stallman.org. The point is, what do plutocrats want? They want to keep wages down. So even they want to push productivity up and not pay workers any more for it. And that's what they've been doing since the 1970s. That's why the minimum wage hasn't been raised. That's why they have been working to crush unions in many different ways. You see, they have many tactics, but they add up to the same thing. You don't get paid much. If you're out of work, you don't get much help. They want the workers that aren't needed to be in the cemetery.
Right.
And they've been very effective at this, but now what we see is lots of people are aware of this and they're trying to fight back. And I'm one of them, and if we succeed in organizing ourselves, we'll undo what the plutocrats have done. It is possible, I believe, to restore democracy in the United States and make those plutocrats pay a lot of money in taxes so that we can have a decent country again where things work. Now, this is the way to make America great again.
Do you see any hope there?
I see some hope, but that doesn't mean we can't lose.
Where does the
It
hope come
depends
from?
on everyone who can help in this. Every American who wants democracy, who wants a decent country where people who work get paid and people who can't work get help, you've got to join in this fight. You've got to support progressive candidates. Look at the primary elections for the Democratic Party. See if there's a progressive candidate, because a lot of Democrats are toys of the plutocrats too.
Right, yeah.
Just because someone's a Democrat, that doesn't mean that person is worth voting for.
Right.
Like Hillary Clinton, just like her husband, we're not worth voting for. When I saw what Clinton did after he was elected, I decided I'm not going to vote for him again. And that's what I've thought about every Democratic presidential candidate ever since. Hillary Clinton is even worse than Bill Clinton because she's a militarist too.
Yes.
And so when I saw that she was running, I decided I'm certainly not going to vote for her. And then, interestingly, I tried to go to Harvard Bookstore one evening, but it was closed because she was having a book signing there. And there was a line of people outside waiting to get a book and have it signed. So I shouted to the people on the line, when I was young, we had a name for politicians like Clinton, Republicans. And so even if she calls herself a Democrat, I'm never going to vote for her. She's too right-wing for me.
Right, that's true.
And if you want to vote for a woman, why not vote for the progressive one, Jill Stein, who was the Green Party candidate that I actually voted for.
I thought you were endorsing, not endorsing, but Bernie Sanders.
Well, I did,
saw a
but that was what during the primaries.
Yeah, I also voted for him, but when it didn't happen, then...
Right. Well, the point is, of course, I supported Sanders in every feasible way until he lost.
I don't know if it lost or it was just the way Republicans stole the election. DNC stole from...
well, the DNC was biased, and the leaks proved that. And then Donna Brazile, I don't know how to pronounce her name correctly, but she admitted that the DNC was biased. Not too long after the Democratic convention, I posted a petition on Move On, I think, addressed to Hillary Clinton, calling on her to step aside, saying that she didn't support what America needs, didn't support what Democrats want, and she was losing.
And a lot of, yes, you're right.
I only got 7 signatures on this petition, but
to be honest with you, I think a lot of Democrats did not go out and vote because of her, because they were so demoralized. They were discouraged, so they did not go. So I don't know what role Russia played, but I'm certain that because of Hillary Clinton also, it demoralized.
Right. I mean, it's outrageous that Russia tries to manipulate U.S. elections.
You don't have to.
Well, I mean, it might have made some difference. Yes. That's not the point. The point is that there were lots of reasons why Clinton would have made a bad president.
Right, that's true.
And didn't deserve our support. Now, I got fed up with voting for the lesser evil because, as others pointed out and I read and recognized is true, voting for the lesser evil gets you more evil and more evil every time.
Yeah, because you are just lowering the bar.
Right,
the bar.
Exactly.
So in the end, all you will get up with evil people. There won't be any good because that's your bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have hope that Sanders will win next time. But I also have hope that progressives will win in November and stop the corrupter from doing a lot of the nasty stuff he does. I have various names to call him. The reason I prefer not to use his name is that he's a narcissist and he likes to see people using his name.
Right.
So I'm denying him a pleasure. It's not a taboo. I can say Trump, you know. I can say that what he does is Trumpery. But I prefer usually to call him by a more descriptive name.
What is that name?
Which one? Well, various ones. Sometimes the bully. Sometimes the infant.
Yeah.
Sometimes the troll.
Oh yeah. He. I mean, we can use a lot of other names, but we won't use on camera.